Bienvenidos y bienvenidas a un episodio más de la segunda temporada de Roma. El mundo, como todos ya sabemos, está cambiando. La pandemia nos vino a enseñar tantas cosas y entre ellas nos abrió estas oportunidades de movilidad, mudarnos a otros lados, trabajar remotamente y así empezar a disfrutar de esas experiencias que se nos presentan en la vida. Estamos comenzando a entender la importancia de vivir en el presente y que no todo gira alrededor del hacer, sino del ser. México ha sido uno de los países más abiertos que le ha dado la bienvenida a más extranjeros alrededor del mundo. Y si vives en la Ciudad de México, seguramente te has dado cuenta que en la Roma y la COndesa ya se habla más inglés que español. Es por eso que quise invitar a una amiga americana, Jessica Manley, para que nos platique de su experiencia de lo que ha sido vivir en México y su compromiso con el país. Qué difícil a veces escuchar cuánto ella lo ama y otras personas que han llegado aquí, más que los propios mexicanos, que a veces no apreciamos lo que tenemos. Jess también nos platica de su emprendimiento dentro de la industria de cannabis, abrió, una bebida basada en hemp relajante. Además de su experiencia de lo que ha sido crecer en una familia revolucionaria dentro de la industria desde hace tantos años. Si una vez has dudado en mudarte o has dejado de vivir alguna experiencia por el miedo al cambio, no dudes en escuchar este episodio. Jess, gracias por compartir con nosotros tu amor a México. Eres una inspiración. Hola, pues bienvenidas y bienvenidos a un episodio más de UMA. Va a ser un episodio un poco diferente por la invitada que tengo. Y probablemente hablemos un poco en español y un poco en inglés. Pero bueno, si no lo entienden en YouTube y si lo están escuchando en Spotify, en YouTube lo van a ver con subtítulos para las que necesiten una ayudada. Y si no, pues bueno, aquí voy a hacer a mi invitada intentar. Y bueno, la invitada que tengo el día de hoy es muy importante para mí porque creo que desde su llegada pues he vivido en México un poco distinto y desde otro lugar, porque estoy invitando a una amiga mía americana, Jessica Manley.
Ay, mucho gusto. Gracias, Pili.
Que nos va a platicar de su experiencia que ha sido estar aquí como expat en México, los shocks culturales, lo que ha aprendido, las diferencias, lo bonito, lo no tan bonito de sus 2 años aquí. ¿Ya llevas?
Sí, creo. Un poco más creo, porque estoy entre los dos lugares, pero sí, más o menos.
Y bueno, acaba de hacer la decisión de dejar su departamento en Los Ángeles.
Exacto.
Entonces, pues eso quiere decir que ya se ve aquí como mexicana, pero pues yo quiero indagar. And I want to know much more about this, and I think this will be very helpful for everyone that comes and arrives to Mexico without knowing, and it's trending right now.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. On the streets, I feel like it's like all foreigners in some way, which is good and bad. It's, understanding that. But overall, yes, Mexico has been amazing. You know this. They joke and they call me the Mexican Board of Tourism because I love Mexico so much. But, I think it's a really easy place to move to. People are super welcoming. I obviously joined Kelly's group of friends initially, and they took me under their wings. So I think the friend angle makes it so nice. But then also lifestyle-wise, I think we're going through a very interesting moment within Mexico City where you have people coming from all around the world, and whether that's business or art or whatever it may be, whatever field, it's kind of this cultural renaissance. I always compare it to Paris in the 1920s to some degree.
Okay.
And it does feel like that in a sense. I think it's a very interesting moment for Mexico City, and hopefully we keep flourishing with all these people who are coming in, but still maintain the culture at the same time, because obviously that's so important to preserving the city.
My dear Jess, before we get into all these things that we started talking about, I don't want to really go deep into them before introducing you the proper way. So Jessie Manley, as I've said, she's a very good American friend of mine. I need to say gringa. Of course.
It's okay. You can still say that, Pili.
She's the co-founder of Aplos. Aplos is a beverage, non-alcoholic beverage that's amazing. It's like based on hemp, right? Mm-hmm. So it gives you like these.
We like to say calm and relaxing, and I know my Latin friends don't like putting down their mezcal or their tequila, but when you're looking for an alternative or just trying to be healthier for that matter, Aplos is a great option for it. And actually it can make a really nice margarita without tequila, so it has a nice citrus forward taste to it, so you can kind of pretend like you're drinking a margarita to some degree.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is that you cannot find it here in Mexico, but if you're listening to us in Austin, Houston, Miami, or all my Latinas that are...
It's all over the U.S., and we do have plans to come to Mexico very, very soon. So watch out for that. But in the meantime, you can have friends bring it to you over in Mexico.
No, and it's amazing. We have a bottle here, and if you're watching the video, you're going to see it. That's why we have it.
Yeah.
And they've been growing like crazy. I think the non-alcoholic beverage industry is going crazy. And that's part of what I admire about you, that you started your own thing without the industry being 100% there. I know you grew up in this industry.
A wild childhood, to say the least.
And I think it's worth it if you tell us a little bit about your childhood, and then we go into how you decided to come here to Mexico.
Yeah, of course. I'm from Arizona initially, so I grew up there. But I grew up in a family that was the pioneers of cannabis. So they started a magazine called High Times. So many may know the magazine and many don't. But what it is essentially kind of Playboy for cannabis, but really represented this. I know it sounds interesting to say that, but it's funny whenever I meet people, they're like, oh, I used to get it in the mail and had to hide it from my mom. It really represented this counterculture, subculture within the world that was like, cannabis was a part of it, but it was also giving people the chance to express their voices. So it was represented under like people who were, kind of revolutionized different areas of the world. And so we started in the 70s, and so I grew up kind of watching the early days of cannabis, where it used to be, this very taboo thing where people would talk about it and they wouldn't know what to do with it. And now I think we've come so far because cannabis is becoming widely accepted. We're seeing decriminalization happen across the world, and I think the next 10 years, there's going to be even more of that. But we were definitely a driving force. So we were a media conglomerate, and then we moved into events, doing cannabis cups, which were very, unusual. And they judged the best cannabis from around the world. And now we own dispensaries in the United States, and also have some of our own brands too. So I grew up around that, but grew up in a family, both American parents. My grandmother was German, and she was a very strong influence on me as well. And so that definitely came in. And so I was traveling, always whenever I could. And so I think that's really what spurred me to continually have this instinct to try out new locations. They say the best way to fight off old age is to constantly put yourself in situations that aren't necessarily your comfort zone. And I think that's what living abroad does for you as well.
Wow, I hadn't seen it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived abroad as well, but I hadn't seen it as a way to stay young, or at least young at heart, and try new stuff. And as we say, living out of your comfort zone is also part of your authenticity, your development, your I'm sorry, your vulnerability. Anyways, I know we didn't say we were gonna talk about this, but I'm really interested in how did you manage, like, coming from this or being in a family that was in this taboo industry.
Yeah.
And for you, on how when you're young, like fitting in with friends is the most difficult part of it. How did you manage it, or how did you communicate it to your friends?
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, it was still very kind of something we didn't talk about that much, but I really liked it because it was just this amazing voice for causes that were underserved. So whether that was cannabis or it's talking about a group somewhere else who's kind of fighting the government, it represented much more than cannabis. And I think overall I'm a big believer in that. And so when I was growing up, I think I grew up in Arizona, which, close to California. I think most people were fairly amenable to cannabis, but then at the same time, I think it's just, showcasing what you do in a respectful way, and just hearing people out. And that's kind of how I am with anything in life. So whether it be politics or whatever, it's kind of expressing what you hold dear to yourself and then hearing what they have to say. And so I think that was really a strong thing, and I never forced it on anyone. Like now I really don't consume that much, like definitely CBD, but not so much on the THC side, but I'm a complete supporter for it. So I just see it as another form of medicine, if anything, particularly when you're dealing with cancer or more extreme, extreme diseases. Cannabis can be just an amazing, amazing, amazing medicine.
And more we're seeing these studies that are saying like cannabis changes everything. Even with COVID right now, I read something like a week ago that was like, cannabis can help you, how to say, desinflamar.
Fight off, inflammation.
Inflammation, which is important for the lungs and your body. And
maybe that's why I never got COVID and you did.
I know, I didn't twice. And right now I am doing CBD at night to sleep better.
Good.
And since I'm running my marathons and stuff like that, I need it for my muscles and everything. And it's controlled, of course. People, I don't know if then when my mom listens to it, she's gonna like, no. My God.
No, I think actually like that's an important part for so for high times, but also Applos is like the point for all the products we create is to really drive the industry forward. And I think in order to do that, you have to have the quality control behind it. So in the example of Applos, we work with Hudson Hemp, and it's an amazing regenerative farm. It's, it's like what you would find at a great farmer's market. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure that each time you try our product, you get the same amount, the same dosage, and there's no problems with it. Because I think that is the biggest disservice you can do to the industry by serving someone product where they say, oh, I had this trip, or I went here or there. And so we really try to prevent that on all levels. And I think within cannabis, the brands that I work with at least, we're all trying to do the same, because it raises the bar on what's capable on cannabis and just makes people feel way more comfortable in that sense.
Yeah, and when you control it and know that it's legal, it's so much better.
Yeah, and I think it's an exciting point for Mexico too. We're obviously not there yet, but they're close to legalization and things to a certain degree, and so we'll see how it progresses. Right now, it's been a little slow.
It's gonna go into a good way. I'm pretty sure, and I hope so.
Definitely.
But I want to go back to you.
Totally.
So you mentioned that you lived in different places.
Yep.
Where did you live before coming to Mexico?
Yeah. So I went to school in New Orleans at Tulane, and my first semester of college, Katrina hit, which was like a massive hurricane. And I remember. Yeah, exactly. It was really odd because it was 2 days into school. I had unpacked all my stuff. I was like, how is this possible? So what happened is they closed the entire campus and city down because it was so bad. And we were all invited to go to different universities throughout the U.S. And at the moment, I was like, no, I don't want to go anywhere else. And so I moved to Peru. I thought I wanted to be a doctor at the time. And so I volunteered for 4 months there. So that was the first real stint. And like growing up, traveled quite a bit in Europe, living in Germany as well as France, since my grandmother was German. And that was the first stint. Then I did New York Argentina, Buenos Aires after college. I moved with one of my best friends, and it was incredible. I worked for a luxury publishing company there. And I think, similarly, it was a really interesting time for growth, and it's just such a fabulous city in terms of the people, food, all the things there's just so much culture there as well.
Entonces podemos regresar al español porque
Sí.
ya viviste en Perú y en Argentina.
Sí, podemos. Perfecto.
Sí, podemos.
Sí.
Lo vamos a hacer despacito.
Sí.
Algunas cosas sí, algunas cosas
Claro,
no.
claro. Y pero después de eso me voy, fui a Nueva York para vivir, para trabajar en finanzas.
Okay.
Y después de eso Londres para consultorio, ¿no?
Consultora.
Sí, exacto.
Sí, muy bien.
Sí, muchos lugares diferentes y distintos, pero me encanta todos.
Y de esos 4, porque vas a contestar que en México, obvio,
Sí.
entonces lo voy a dejar fuera.
Ajá.
De esos 4, ¿cuál fue el que más te gustó?
Ay, esta pregunta es tan difícil, ¿no?
Muy.
Pero por el momento...
O de cada uno,
sí.
¿qué es lo que te llevas contigo?
Bueno. Para mí, por el momento, México es lo máximo porque tengo mis mejores amigas aquí.
Ay, gracias.
Pero no, la vida es como súper romántico aquí, creo. Es como todos los sensorios, como los ruidos, the smells, es como todo, ¿no?
Los ruidos, I mean, you're talking about like
The noise.
No, pero what is
maybe not that one.
That song, no? Okay.
No, but it's like the person who's like playing in it, like a guitar, walking down the street, you know? You have all these different variations.
Folkloric,
yeah,
folklore.
exactly. And it's so charming. And I think right now there's a lot going on creatively. And we speak about this quite a bit is, having grown up primarily in the business world, I do feel like I need to tap more into my creative side, and I feel like Mexico is definitely pushing me into that a bit.
Okay.
And I mean, to be seen. I'm not an artist by any means yet. But
No, I think you're creative and your house is amazing. I think we should take some pictures of your house later.
Yeah,
and show them. It's even more Mexican than mine. Like mine is like kind of modern, and this girl lives in a small townhouse in La Roma, which is, seriously, it's more Mexican, a lot of folklore. ¿Cómo se dicen los tapices?
Tapestry, no?
Tapestry with different colors, and I think it's worth it that we show it off. That's how come an American or a foreigner is living more into our roots than us, which is funny.
Yeah, but deep down you guys invite me for everything, you know? It's like going to the different holidays and things like that. But I think I just love color, and there's just you have such amazing artisanal work all throughout Mexico. You'd be silly not to tap into it, but it's always grass is greener. For me, I'm like
the other side.
I'm like going to markets with this one. I feel like I go crazy.
Yeah, she loves the flower market.
I do.
And she comes like home back with I don't know how many flowers every Sunday.
I go crazy, and then I make bouquets, and it's like these are the rewarding things you get in Mexico, where you can really have fun with things, and just all the markets are incredible here. Like. All the markets. So, yeah.
Which one is your favorite?
Oh, that's hard. I would say Jamaica, no? I go there like every 10 days to get flowers. But it's primarily just because I do the flower pickup, but it's the best. And what's yours?
I think La Lagunilla.
Aha.
I love La Lagunilla. I've found so many like small stuff that are precious to me that make my house my home instead of just a decoration. It's like a piece of art that I found that has a history that I can bring with me.
Of course, there are so many cool pieces there. That's a great one.
There's everything. You can find junk. But if you're not from Mexico City, if you ever come, it's one of the best places when you can really appreciate our culture and how we sell and how they used to do it, because it's been on for so many years.
Totally. But beautiful antiques there too. They have everything. It's like a bit of all worlds.
But you didn't answer my question. What did you bring from all these cities to Mexico?
I think as you get older, you take a piece of every city that you live in, or each person that you meet, right? And so I guess like for me, for New York, it was really like my early 20s, and there's just such a lifestyle there, right? You have your best friends, and you're just trying to sink your teeth into the business world. And so I was working in finance at the time, and it made it very clear this is not for me. But yeah,
we've been there, both of us.
Yeah, exactly. But I also, I think, learned like some great skills in being in a job that I didn't necessarily love. Like I loved the human interaction piece to it. We had really interesting clients. I was working in private banking at that point. And I loved that, connecting with the clients and all of that, but then I didn't love the analytical side to it, which is obviously a key piece to this profession. But New York is, you can do anything you want in New York. There's so many different people, different experiences. And so I think it is a really special spot. Like I will always keep coming back there because it holds such like a soft spot in my heart. And then, London, you have Europe as your back door. And so you have, again, so many different people from all around the world. So I think for me, my group of friends was far more diverse in London, and so I was constantly exposed to that, which I loved. And then, being able to hop on an hour flight and you can see something completely unique to that. Yeah. But I also loved the intellectual world in London. I found that I really jumped into that, and because you have so many different personalities, there's never a boring dinner conversation. No. So we used to host dinner parties there, and it was nice because we would invite people from different walks of life, and just so stimulating to have that that edginess in a way where you're not sitting with people who are the exact same as you. And I think for Mexico, that's really fun for me too. Even though many of my friends are Mexican, Mexico is so rich and diverse. You're from Monterrey. There's so many different locations to it, and I think that really is kind of the way in which you look at it. So it's a very different Mexican depending on where you grew up. So
yes, we're very different in every city.
Totally.
Do you notice our accents now?
I am. I'm paying more attention. I'm paying more attention to it. And also the slang is another thing you have.
I really, when you came up with London, this idea came to me, how are you seeing this from London in Mexico cities? Is it the same, the diversity? Not only for Mexicans, I know you mentioned that, but also for all these foreigners that are around. I don't know, your friends are from where?
Yeah, I think it's a mix, right?Ondon is obviously very different in that, where it's geographically focused and just the overall setup. So I think it's very different in its origins. Brits are very different than Mexicans and just their behavior, all these things. But I do think that you are seeing this time here in Mexico specifically right now, where you're getting people from all across the world. I would say here I have a very diverse group of friends. I have obviously a great group of Mexicans who I love. But then I have friends from, Bosnia, from all over Latin America, and all parts of Europe. And so it's a nice breeding space for just a very global community. And whether they live here or they're staying for a few months or coming for a week, it's a really nice situation. But I do think things move slower here, which I really appreciate. I really appreciate, because I think it's nice to slow down. I think New York is probably the quickest pace. And so coming here, just a certain simplicity about things that I try to come back to. And, you come in no matter where you live or where you come from, and you have those kind of things working behind the scenes, whether you believe them or not. And so I think that's one of the things I've been working with is as a foreigner, how do you be respectful and come in with an appreciation for how things are done differently. And I'm learning from you guys.
Jessie, what do you mean by slow? I want to know and understand it.
You probably don't get the idea of that from the way I speak.
I'm used to slow.
Yeah,
maybe.
Exactly.
Actually, sometimes I think life goes really fast. So totally. For me, it's how come?
Yeah.
Is this slow? Should I be?
Of course.
Should I go more?
Well, I think, it's for example, so in my little neighborhood, I know everyone in my neighborhood now. And so it's you take the moments to meet the guy who's sleeping on the street and have get to know his entire family and everything. I think it's just like seeing all these things and like really bringing them in. So for example, like in the morning, I have very slow mornings now. Like I allow myself to have time. I have this amazing like juice woman her name's Ellie, and she's on the side of the street, and you know I would like have this full conversation with her every day, and then I'll meet someone else I see who's a neighbor, and you're like allowing yourself to interact in a way where in New York or LA, for example, I would be like boom, 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 and I don't necessarily have those personal relationships with everyone. So I think in that sense, like I think Mexicans on a whole are exceedingly warm, and so you have to give yourself time and space to allow for that to come into your life. And if you're moving super quickly, like you can't pick up on those little details, and whether that's human interaction or it's just like noticing the way this flower is blossoming on the street, you know. I think I've really tried to like move into that, and I think on a whole Mexicans are just more appreciative for these small moments, and I think it leads to like really great values around families and just the way in which you set up your schedule. It's like you have long lunches.
Yeah, los viernes chilangos, which are especially here in Mexico. No, and you haven't been in the small like towns, in the pueblos.
Yeah.
Go for a month to any pueblo. You can choose.
No, I need to.
Puerto Escondido. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, time goes so slow there. I remember when I was younger, I used to go to a ranch, and I remember going to the town and buying stuff
nice.
there and talking to everyone, and I knew the names, and I went once a year even. And it happens.
It's
like,
the best though, because you would never have that experience if you were just moving through it. And I think like that's why, again, this is a bad example because I'm not speaking Spanish now, but
Está bien.
No, but it's like good to try to learn language, and I've been really bad because it's easy to speak with these guys, but just having those conversations in the street and whatever it may be, and being open to those interactions is half the battle, I think. So.
But you're learning the language in another way, I think. You're learning how we interact, how we connect.
Yeah.
The values and the bright side of Mexico, because there's also
of course
things that I think as a culture we should change.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate that you appreciate my culture, and I hadn't seen it this way. It's the first. I mean, we've talked about it between like friends, but it was the first time that I'm like, oh yeah, it's true. Like I know people are caring and the service, but it's. The slowness gives you time also to connect with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And just, such a colorful existence. We just went to India, not us, but like other friends of ours. And I think similarly, like there's just so much richness to this country, whether that be in, the buildings, like, or the people. And I think that's really like what Mexico boils down to, is like this like real warmth for everything, and it's really contagious. Like I think it really makes Mexicans, like, you show up in such an unbelievably like joyful and just colorful way that is very enviable. So I love Mexico, this.
I think I know you love it, but there's probably some things that you don't love. And here in UMA we talk about
I know
the good and the bad.
I know.
So can you tell us like some experiences that haven't been as joyful?
Yeah, I think one of the things you have to like is learning the culture first, right? And so in business, I have done some fundraising in Mexico. I actually have a number of amazing Mexican investors who I love. And
I hope so.
But yeah, I think there is a certain slowness to the pace of business, where in the US, we are very, very snappy with things. And so I just had to adjust to that, and understanding that, things don't move as quickly in that sense. But, as we were talking about before, like, one is not necessarily better than the other, because at the same time, like, it allows you to really get to know someone and go through that period with them, from a business perspective. So I think it's a blessing and a curse, right? It's just getting used to it.
And I just want to tell you, Jessie, that it's really the culture from Mexico City.
Yeah.
If you go up north to Monterey, people are kind of different. I mean, we're near the border, so I think we started doing business with the American people before Mexico City opened up, even I think before the NAFTA and everything happened. And that's one of the things that I appreciate, that we can be more direct.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, as you said, when people are not as direct, you might also continue reading these people and just... It's okay to take your time to make decisions.
Of course.
And I don't know why they don't say, hey, I'm undecided.
Yeah.
Give me some time. They will say yes, but it's like the way of caring or not hurting your emotions. But I think it's the first tip to anyone that comes into Mexico. Be aware that they might tell you yes, but it's a no. And it's probably even more difficult to Europeans
than
to Americans.
Yeah,
so for all of you, if you're undecided to come, I mean, it's very good. There's so many things, but that part, it's the risky part. Anyways, I want to go into, now that we're talking about tips, what other tips will you give to anyone that's moving to Mexico?
Ooh, good question. Well, I think when you're moving anywhere, the better the community you have, the better off you are. So having a few key friends there that kind of build that network for you, or if you don't have that, finding them. And I think there are really interesting ways to find people when you're a foreigner. So it's really allowing yourself to be open to meeting new people at a cafe and things like that. So I think the biggest tip is being open-minded to people coming up to you in random locations and just starting relationships around that, because I think that the richness of any location really stems from the community you surround yourself by. And then what else would I say, I guess?
Yeah, tell me specific things about Mexico, even
finding
a home, choosing a place.
Well, so finding
negotiating.
Finding a place is tricky, especially because Mexico is such a crazy market right now, and everyone is moving here. But I got really lucky in that a friend of a friend moved out, and so I think what I would say is the best options you can find in the market here are the ones that usually are through word of mouth. And so the more you tell people you're looking for stuff and make that really specific, here's my requirements, I want it in this area, here's my price point, all of that, the easier the chances are. But then I think when moving to Mexico, you have to be ready to it's a different way of life in many senses, and so being open to those adjustments and kind of going with the flow with them. And so whether that be getting sick and working through it or whatever. I just had a group of 6 people in town from Europe this weekend, and all of them got sick, and that's what happens with any location. It just allowing yourself to adjust. And
was it
Montezuma.
Montezuma Revenge? Was it?
It was the whole group, an entire team was in town, and they all got sick. But I'm trying to think what other specific examples that have really helped me.
Maybe negotiating, or how do you
definitely negotiating. And it's like anything in the US, when you go for an apartment, being really prepared and organized. And the more that you have that, having great friends who can help you translate documents to have them reviewed. But I think the main thing, though, that is the best tool is just being very, very open-minded when you get here, and allowing things to come in. Because if you're closed off, you're never gonna adapt to the culture. I had a few friends who come and they like it, but they have a hard time jumping in. And so I think that's the biggest tool, which sounds so silly.
No, in jumping in, you jumped completely. She's leaving her apartment, as I said at the beginning, in LA. She's now a full-time Mexican. What about the lawyers? Was it difficult for you to get your visa?
Well, the visa is a work in progress.
Okay.
It has been difficult in that. So, I think one of the things I didn't allow for is that it takes time. And so I got the visa in the US, and I was so excited. I sent it to all my friends. I'm like, I got it. And then what the immigration attorneys failed to tell me is I needed the resident card as well, and you have about 30 days to do it. So, and And that month, it was right before Christmas, so it was like kind of running on Mexican time in that sense. And so even though I had an appointment to get that card, I couldn't get in for 2 days, and then I had all these trips for work like lined up, and so I had to leave. So now I have to restart the process, but I would definitely be well informed on that, so you can plan accordingly. So what happens for at least as Americans is you go to the U.S., you have to have an appointment, you have someone sponsor you, or you go through it yourself, and then you come to Mexico, and you have to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room to get that through. So it's not the easiest of processes. I definitely think having someone help you with that is absolutely necessary. But I think the country as a whole is very open-minded. I think it's very similar to Portugal in that sense. It's a very, very, very like open country. And so it's not exceedingly difficult like the US or the UK to receive a visa or citizenship for that matter. But you have to follow the process and despacito.
Despacito, exacto. That's my favorite word, I think.
It's perfect.
Like it's
so
one
true.
step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Exactly.
Well, thank you. I think I hope it helps.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Jessie, thank you for all those tools. I think they will be very helpful for everyone.
Of course.
I think they're small things, but if you have a question, if you're moving here, and if you're listening to us, please send us a message, because I think we can help.
We're happy to help, and I think both you and I, we love connecting people and helping them get acclimated here. And there really is such a warm community for everyone, I think.
I know there's a warm community, but telling me the truth, how many Mexican friends do you really have?
I feel like I've got a pretty hearty number, baby.
What's a hearty number?
I
really close.
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think, I think I have a pretty good amount of Mexican friends, but it is very mixed, I will say. And I think for most people, I think I've been coming here since 2009, so I feel like I have like a pretty solid base of friends. But I think it can be hard to get sucked into kind of the foreigner world for sure. And there definitely is a very strong community of that. And so I think, I have friends from all different walks of life. It's important to have both of those. And I think overall, sometimes Mexicans can be a little bit, it's harder to really join those forces sometimes. I feel like I've been very fortunate, but I know that some of my other friends have found it difficult to kind of find their space, so to speak.
What do you think? What can we do better as Mexicans to bring in these and blend more? Because, in the 1920s, how many people came here, at least from Spain?
Yeah.
In the 1940s, when wars, all these Jewish that came here.
Yeah.
And they're now part of society, but what can we do now? There's a war going on right now, but it was not one. There was not one before. So I think we never lived that moment where a lot of people came in until this year or these 2 years, where Mexico was open during COVID. So I think our young generation needs to learn this, how to welcome.
Yeah, I would actually say on the reverse side, I think as foreigners, we have to be more just more flexible in the way we're kind of coming into this country, and really having a respect for the culture, the people, and all of that. I really don't, I feel like Mexicans, at least in my part, are just so warm in that sense, but I guess, part of it is like just offering to help and make it easier to kind of acclimate yourself to that, so it's not such a high barrier to entry. But yeah, I don't know, it's hard. It's really hard for me to pinpoint what you could do to help, because I feel like on a whole, Mexicans are just such a all-embracing culture in many forms.
No, thank you, because I see it otherwise. I think from my group of friends, apart from our other group, which we are like Americans, Mexicans from other places, not a lot of my friends have foreigner friends. They do have from other cities.
Yeah. But
not many of them do have, which is hurting for me, because the that I lived in Boston, I also lived in Madrid, and I've learned so many things from this diversity, not only of gender, but of culture, of ways to think. I'm grateful for that, and I wish everybody could live it. But I know maybe at parties or these spaces or like nice dinners or...
I think so. I think it's just kind of bridging that gap. I would say as Americans in a whole, we've kind of become that way too. And so I always say is like the best way to heal that is to travel more, because it opens your mind up to different people and things, ways of life, and it just makes you more receptive, whether you're cognizant of that or not. Like you're just taking these groups in. And so I think that's really like the key piece, is kind of getting yourself, being okay to kind of jump out of your comfort zone, so to speak. So,
and also for us Mexicans to jump out and
exactly
just accept that they probably will stay here and they will become part of this society at the end.
Yeah, hopefully.
But anyways, how has dating life been? Of course I was gonna ask. I want to know how dating life is for foreigners.
Oh, goodness. I think it's been interesting. I mean, Mexican men are a rare breed.
Do you love the machismo and how they are gentle?
I do like a direct man who takes like a bit more authority in things, because I think like you are both probably pretty strong females, so we need someone to stand up to us in that sense. So that has been good. I generally am I don't like when they're like super machoismo like that. That's not my thing. So I find the ones that I'm drawn towards are the ones that have some experience living elsewhere or open-minded, because I don't think either one of us could have someone directing our every move. But it's definitely been, we always talk about this, I think definitely has come with a number of stories.
Can you tell me one story at least? Can you share with us? What makes Uma? We need stories. This is
goodness, you're putting me on the spot.
Of course I am.
Let's put it this way: I've dated a guy who was not just one person.
Okay, so multi-personalities.
Yeah. But I mean, everything teaches you something about life, right? Like no matter where you are, who you're dating. And so overall, I think Mexican men are super genteel. They have really wonderful manners, great family values. I'm gonna be like a walking billboard for all things.
I wanted to know a story. I mean, I've been the other way around with stories with foreigner guys, where I'm used to men paying, which I love, and they won't pay. Yeah. Which is fine. I mean, they come from that culture. But I remember once, like, I was like, are you inviting me or not? Come on. She's like, do you want me to invite you? Would you feel less? And I'm like, no, I will feel more appreciated.
Exactly.
And then I was like, how come? But you're like a superwoman. And I'm like, no. I want to be
totally
the other way around. I want to be a super girl. I don't know how to say it, but I want to be this person that you appreciate, that you take care of. And it's also difficult to move around this machismo and this.
Well, I like that aspect of it. I think that I think generally Mexican men have very great manners, like opening the door for you. They really dote on their women. They stand up when you get up. Not all. But the good ones do. And I do think that there is like a really nice balance in that. Like I love people who have good family values, and I think many Mexicans do, but you have your diamonds in the rough wherever you go.
Sí, para todos los solteros, aquí tenemos una soltera.
Las
dos. Pero bueno, si les gustan las extranjeras de Arizona, búscalen con valores. Of course I need to say that.
Oh God, you too, baby.
I know.
Even the foreigners for this one. She also likes foreigners.
I think so. I don't know. Depending on the values and
if they're willing to move to Mexico, that's a key
probably.
requirement.
I love Mexico. I love
exactly
everything that it gives to me. Like even your lifestyle. So
oh God, it's amazing.
You don't have this service, a lifestyle, everything like any other country.
I completely agree with you.
Anyways, I want to jump into the final questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Uma. The first one, before we close up this ¿cómo se dice? Conversación o tema.
Lo mismo, sí.
Tengo esta pregunta para ti. En una oración, ¿cómo convencerías a alguien a que se venga a vivir aquí a México?
Bueno, ¿quieres pasión? Ven acá.
Ok.
Ven aquí. Ven aquí.
No, ven a...
Es como la pasión de la vida. Creo que eso es la cosa que es lo más interesante para mí. Como los ruidos, todo eso. Y también la gente, la comida. Es como un sabor de
sí, esa es una gran pregunta.
Sí.
¿A qué sabe México? What's Mexican flavor?
I mean, that's so hard to say. You have all shapes and flavors, baby.
Spicy.
Definitely spicy. I think especially for my female friends here, I've found that I love how strong Mexican women are, and also men too. There's definitely a spiciness, so picante.
Picante, me gusta. Pasión y picante. If you're unsure if you want to come. Okay, ahora sí. Preguntas.
Okay.
What inspires you?
Oof. Well, I said before, I think right now I'm really trying to bring in some more creativity to my life. And so it's like the sights all throughout Mexico right now. So we both have dogs, and I feel like they're always on our sidekick. It's actually unusual that they're not sitting here with us right now.
Well, today we're going to make noise.
Yeah, exactly. But just, walking the streets of Mexico is amazing. And then I think on a deeper level, from a business perspective, I love the way things are going in a health wellness, with cannabis. Like, I've heard such incredible stories about how cannabis has completely changed people's way of life if they're in incredible pain. And so I think just opening the door onto what's possible within plant medicine is really, really, really interesting for me right now. But then outside of that, I think I'm always inspired at people who have a lot of passion, whether they're like nerds about cryptocurrency or whatever it may be. I love just to kind of take that in, and so I think I'm constantly enthralled by differences in human interactions.
I love it. Passion.
Yeah.
Inspires you.
Passion,
no way you're here in Mexico. Now I understand.
I think that's it. What about for you, Pili?
What inspires me? I think I get inspired about authentic people, authentic people. When people raise their voice for what they think, it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. It gives me an inspiration to learn more about myself and what I think, and what my beliefs are and where I want to go.
That's great. I love that.
You love it?
Yeah.
I have another important question.
Let's hit it.
What would you say to yourself 20 years ago?
Ooh, so 20 years ago. We're getting old.
Or 15. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I think
your younger self.
I think to be more playful. I think it's really important. I think when you start out in life, you're like, I have to be the best at this. I have to do all these things to get there. And I think just allowing life to kind of flow into being. I think I've become much more receptive to not knowing necessarily that it's going to be one direct path. It may be a bit wayward, but that's where like the true beauty comes in. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me is like I had so much expectation of what I wanted to create, and I think the moment I started releasing my control around things, I started creating companies, helping people to create companies, and just got a lot more playful with existence. And I think part of that is going back to what you said before is like understanding yourself and getting really, really clear on like, what do I enjoy doing? Who am I? And not necessarily taking, other people's advice. So if your parents are telling you to be a doctor, an attorney, like I obviously don't fall into that category. And I think everyone's existence is so different. So the moment you understand who you are, the easier it is for you to tap into like your authentic, way of life. And so, chill out, I guess.
Chill out and we'll get there. That's what I will say to myself. You will get there. Doesn't matter what the path is.
Exactly.
You'll have everything you want in life.
Exactly.
Sooner or later.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times these random wrong turns are, in many ways the most fruitful. Like we've spoken about this quite a bit, is like how some of the greatest failures can lead to some of your best moments in life.
So that's actually my next question.
So
before you answer that, it's o sea, I'm going to say it in Spanish.
Please.
Pero ¿qué problema tuviste en tu vida que se convirtió en una bendición o que convertiste en una bendición?
Well, I think I spoke about this a bit earlier. So when I got into finance, I think it was like 2009 when I started working in that. And, finance represented like the right path, so to speak, for my university. And I think for a lot of Americans and it wasn't that I was terrible, but I kind of was. There'd be massive wires that had to go out, and I just wasn't detail oriented. I'm detail oriented in color and creativity, but not when it came to this. And so I think it was really hard working in that position and feeling like I was a failure and that I couldn't make up this space. I couldn't fall into this. And so I think that was initially really challenging because it made me go deep inside. And I was like, well, I'm not meant to be this person, And I think when you're first starting out, you have all these expectations for how it should go. But I also think it was the best thing that has happened to me because it really spurred this continuous growth. So I went into the startup world and management consulting abroad, and now cannabis, more entrepreneurship than anything. And so I think, sometimes your biggest failures are the ones that really jumpstart everything. So
it's when you go inside, when you fail,
Definitely.
It's like, why did I fail?
Yeah.
And you start questioning yourself and you get all these answers you might not expect it.
Exactly.
There's one more thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
And is, what book would you recommend our listeners?
Oh, so I am obviously a huge fan of The Alchemist, hence the name Santiago for my dog.
Okay.
I constantly am rereading that one. But then I also really love The Little Prince. And so I think you know this about me, but I love children's books and I would love to write a children's book at some point. And I think both of those just have they just have such important life lessons where you can reread them, and each time you read them you get a different
perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think those are two wonderful books to take on.
Jessie, I hate to cut you off, but
No
we're
worries.
about to finish. But
Thank you so
it's the first time
much.
they do it. And thank you so much for being with me, for
I love you. Thank
sharing
you.
your experiences here in Mexico, and I hope we can convince more people to come over.
Yeah.
We're open in Mexico, I promise.
Very much so.
Even though we have things to change, but I think with time.
No, super receptive.
Okay.
I'm Mexican Board of Tourism, as you know. So thank you so much, Bailey. And to everyone at UMA, thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Besos.
Besos. Ciao.